Hello, my name is Troy Atkins, and I am the founder and owner of Adkins Capital Management. Adkins Capital Management is a housing advisory services company. I want to talk to you today about the key events that have transpired in the U.S. residential housing market during the third quarter of 2024. During the third quarter of this year, an analysis by the Brookings Institution titled Offshore Ownership of American Real Estate is a Black Box. The Treasury has the power to open it, and the monetary policy actions of the Federal Reserve to accommodate financial conditions that support economic growth amid concerns about inflation and a cooling labor market were the primary topics of conversation. This movie presentation also provides an overview of the home price level for a select group of cities that make up the Adkins 60 City Home Price Index, and it provides a wealth of information for prospective homebuyers to use to make a prudent home purchase decision. This presentation was written, narrated, edited, produced, and published by Troy Atkins. I am the founder and owner of Adkins Capital Management. Adkins Capital Management is a privately owned and independently operated company. Our exclusive focus is on residential real estate. ACM is not affiliated with any parties associated with the residential housing industry. Our mission is to bridge the gap in the residential housing market, where deficiencies in education, public policy, regulation, product structure, and personnel have created an environment where prospective homebuyers need objective information and useful analytical tools in order to help them make a prudent home purchase decision. As an investment professional, I have more than 20 years of real estate analysis experience, more than 10 years of institutional investment consulting experience, more than 8 years of freelance financial and investment writing experience, and more than 5 years of state government experience at the agency and legislative levels. I am also the author of more than 25 published financial and investment articles. Accordingly, I am a 2023 inductee into Marquis Who's Who. For more information about my background, skills, and experience, please visit the Adkins Capital Management website. For the third quarter of 2024, research from the Brookings Institution found that billions of dollars in U.S. residential real estate are held through opaque corporate structures, obscuring the extent of foreign investment. During the third quarter of 2024, the Brookings Institution released a report titled Offshore Ownership of American Real Estate is a Black Box. The Treasury has the power to open it, highlighting critical issues in U.S. residential real estate. Here are the key findings. In terms of opaque ownership structures, it was found that offshore investors frequently use corporate entities to conceal their identities, keeping their names off of public records. As a result, the true extent of offshore investment in U.S. real estate is likely underreported. In terms of masked foreign ownership, domestic shell companies listed as American-based can further obscure the identities of foreign investors. In terms of transparency, policymakers and civil society lack accurate data on the scale of foreign investment in U.S. residential real estate. When taking into account the widespread use of opaque holdings, it was found that billions of dollars in property are held through opaque structures, with significant concentrations in New York City, Miami, and Boston. For example, corporate ownership in these cities accounts for 25 to 37% of residential real estate, mostly held through LLCs, with 71% in New York City, 68% in Miami, and 67% in Boston. Corporate ownership is especially prevalent in luxury properties. When assessing property in the 1 to 2 million range, corporate ownership rises sharply. When assessing properties at the $10 million and $100 million level, corporate ownership exceeds 50% and 80%, respectively. Based on research conducted by Adkins Capital Management, the following key points need to be considered when analyzing the extent of non-U.S. citizen ownership of residential real estate in the U.S. First, there are no federal restrictions on non-U.S. citizens owning residential real estate in the U.S. Foreigners can purchase property as non-residents, permanent residents, or temporary residents, including single-family homes, condos, townhouses, and land. However, some local or state laws may impose restrictions or additional reporting requirements. Second, confidential purchases through a limited liability company structure offer liability protection and tax flexibility. Moreover, profits and losses pass through to owners, avoiding double taxation. When an S corporation is used, income passes through to shareholders, avoiding corporate tax. However, there are restrictions on the number and type of shareholders. A C corporation provides liability protection, but is subject to corporate income tax. Moreover, with a C corp, double taxation occurs, as profits are taxed at both the corporate and shareholder levels. A limited partnership structure involves general and limited partners. Limited partners enjoy liability protection and pass through taxation. In terms of a limited liability partnership, the structure is similar to an LLC, but is often used by professional services firms for liability protection and pass-through taxation. Third, non-U.S. citizens commonly use LLC or LP structures for owning U.S. residential real estate due to their liability protection and tax benefits. Legal trusts are also frequently used to purchase and manage U.S. real estate with potential tax benefits and privacy. The following points need to be understood with regard to using an LLC by non-U.S. citizens to purchase residential real estate in the U.S. LLC information and ownership details can be found on the Secretary of State's website for the state where the LLC is registered. Information is often listed in the Articles of Organization or annual reports. Property deeds can be reviewed at the County Recorder's Office for additional LLC information. The LLC's name, the state of formation, and the registered agent's name should be accessible. For non-U.S. citizens to use an LLC structure, the LLC must be registered in a U.S. state. The LLC must have a registered agent in its state of formation. The LLC typically needs a U.S. bank account for real estate transactions. To open a banking account, an employer identification number must be obtained from the IRS. Non-U.S. citizens can apply using IRS Form SS-4. Under the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act of 1980, non-U.S. citizens must pay U.S. taxes on gains from selling U.S. real estate. LLCs selling property are subject to FIRPTA withholding unless exemptions apply. Legal trusts are versatile tools used by non-U.S. citizens to purchase residential real estate in the U.S. The following points need to be understood. There are 4 types of trusts: revocable trusts, irrevocable trusts, living trusts, and testamentary trusts. Trust can provide a level of anonymity, as the property is owned by the trust rather than the individual. When property is held in a trust, The property title is listed under the name of the trust. Therefore, it is much more difficult to find the name of the owner. Trusts can offer potential tax advantages, such as avoiding stringent U.S. estate tax. Trusts can protect assets from creditors and legal judgments, offering a layer of security. Trusts must comply with U.S. laws and regulations. Information about a trust can be found in the property records in the county where the property is located. The property deed should list the name of the trustee and the name of the trust. Property tax records may list the name of the person or entity responsible for paying the taxes, which could be the trustee. When non-U.S. citizens purchase American real estate, there are numerous safeguards in place to ensure compliance with U.S. laws and prevent illegal activities, such as money laundering or the use of illicit funds. These measures include identifying buyers through LLCs and loans. Since many transactions occur through LLCs, entities like the Secretary of State provide mechanisms to identify the non-U.S. citizen purchasing the property. For finance purchases, U.S. bank accounts serve as a means to identify buyers. When non-U.S. citizens use legal trust arrangements for confidentiality, several entities ensure legal oversight, including title companies, escrow companies, trust companies or banks, and attorneys or law firms acting as trustees. When real estate is purchased with cash to enhance confidentiality, various protections are in place. The Patriot Act and Bank Secrecy Act require the filing of suspicious activity reports. The FinCEN geographic targeting orders mandate reporting of cash transactions above $300,000. The Office of Foreign Assets Control screens buyers against U.S. sanctions lists. Anti-money laundering policies include Know Your Client protocols. IRS reporting requirements for cash transactions over $10,000 must be reported on Form 8300. And real estate professionals conduct customer due diligence before facilitating property purchases. These combined measures help ensure that non-U.S. citizen transactions are transparent and compliant with U.S. regulations. Based on ACM's research, most residential real estate purchases by non-U.S. citizens are conducted via LLCs, and real estate purchase transactions are predominantly financed through U.S. banking institutions rather than cash. Therefore, the primary motive for using LLCs, other corporate forms, or legal trusts appears to be for the maintenance of confidentiality rather than as a mechanism for fostering illegal activities. The findings in the Brookings Institution report are correct in that it is difficult to compile data on U.S. residential real estate ownership by non-U.S. citizens. However, identifying the owner of a specific property that is using an LLC or another corporate structure is relatively straightforward. When a legal trust is involved, determining the owner of a property can be more challenging, but authorities can quickly access the required information for their investigations. The Brookings Institution found that the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network is developing a geographic targeting order program to collect beneficial ownership information. Extending these reporting requirements nationwide would create a comprehensive database to track non-U.S. citizen ownership of U.S. residential real estate. Based on ACM's review of the Brookings Institution report and its own research, ACM has the following recommendations. The U.S. Treasury Department should be encouraged to coordinate efforts between FinCEN and the IRS to enhance data collection processes that will monitor non-U.S. citizen purchases of U.S. real estate in the aggregate. FinCEN's relationship with the IRS should be expanded to monitor non-U.S. citizen purchases of raw land, particularly in strategic locations such as border regions, near military bases, coastal areas, critical infrastructure, agricultural land, and strategic urban and industrial zones. The U.S. Treasury Department should be encouraged to expand the purview of the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, otherwise known as CFIUS, by reviewing and updating the Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act of 2018 to significantly broaden CFIUS's powers and responsibilities. Due to the recent unidentified and unauthorized drone activity in the U.S., ACM suggests that the CFIUS implement additional monitoring measures for residential real estate, commercial real estate, and raw land, and coordinate its information and recommendations with the U.S. Defense Department to help monitor the activities of non-U.S. citizen ownership of real estate in the U.S. Finally, ACM recommends the evaluation and implementation of effective foreign real estate purchase policies from Canada, China, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, the Philippines, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates to protect local, state, and national interests, ensure affordability, and safeguard U.S. national security. With this overview of the Brookings Institution report in mind, let me now turn your attention to our analysis of the Federal Reserve's monetary policy. The general theme of this section is that the Fed has set forth a dovish monetary policy to accommodate financial conditions that support economic growth amid concerns about inflation and a cooling labor market. During the third quarter of this year, the Federal Reserve implemented a dovish monetary policy by conveying that it is primarily interested in easing financial conditions to support economic growth amid concerns about inflation and a cooling labor market. Accordingly, the Fed reduced the federal funds rate twice during the third quarter of this year. In September of 2024, a rate cut of 50 basis points lowered the target range to 4.75% to 5%. Again, the federal funds rate was lowered in November by 25 basis points, cutting the target range to 4.5% to 4.75%. The Fed most recently implemented a dovish monetary policy in March of 2020 in response to the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, the Fed cut interest rates to near zero levels and launched a series of measures to support the economy, including large-scale asset purchases and various lending programs. The Fed was holding the federal funds rate at around zero as recently as the first quarter of 2022. Calls for rate cuts are now a prevalent topic of debate, and the Fed is poised to cut rates by at least another 25 basis points by the end of this year. Due to a host of economic factors, the national average mortgage loan interest rate for a 30-year, fully amortized fixed-rate loan began the quarter at 7.14% and ended the quarter at 6.08%. The national average mortgage loan interest rate for a 30-year fully amortized fixed-rate loan reached an all-time low of 2.67% on December 17, 2020, and the all-time high of 18.63% in October of 1981. With this overview of the Federal Reserve's monetary policy actions in mind, let me now explain the proprietary analytical methodology that was developed by Adkins Capital Management to analyze the home price level of the cities that constitute the Adkins 60 City Home Price Index. From a finance-based perspective, our proprietary valuation methodology analyzes the relationship between home price levels, household income levels, the percentage of pre-tax household income allocated to housing, and the cost of debt for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage loan. From the first analytical perspective, our valuation methodology calculates the justified mortgage loan interest rate, which represents the cost of debt that justifies the home price level with the household income level, taking into account that 28% of household income will be allocated to servicing the mortgage loan. From the second analytical perspective, our valuation methodology calculates the justified percentage of household income amount, which represents the percentage of pre-tax household income that justifies the home price level with the household income level, taking into account the prevailing national average mortgage loan interest rate. Based on Adkins Capital Management's proprietary housing analytical methodology, this section of our presentation pertains to ACM's comprehensive housing analyses. The general theme of this section is that 45 out of 60 cities in the Adkins Home Price Index show overpriced housing. The 45 overpriced cities in the Adkins 60 City Home Price Index were categorized based on their justified percentage of household income amount. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Newark, New York City, and Boston were identified as the 5 most overpriced cities in the index. In terms of a relative price level analysis, it is not possible to justify the home price level for the top 5 overpriced cities by reducing the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage loan interest rate from 6.08% to 0%. In addition, in terms of a relative price level analysis, it is not possible to justify the home price level for the top 5 overpriced cities as underpriced, because prospective home buyers would have to spend more than the respective justified percentage of household income amounts, which fall within the unrealistic range of 75% to 92% of household income. Therefore, in order to justify the median home price level for each city, the median required household income level would need to increase to a level within the respective range of $122,707 and $364,245. Based on the median household income level, the quarter-ending national average mortgage loan interest rate, and the assumption that no more than 28% of pre-tax household income should be spent in order to repay the principal and interest costs of a mortgage loan, the justified home price level for the top 5 overpriced cities fell within the respective range of $160,009 and $461,178. Prospective home buyers should use the Adkins Residential Home Valuation Analyzer in order to assess the level of overpricing of homes in their community. On the other side of the spectrum, based upon the justified percentage of household income amount, 15 cities in the Adkins 60 City Home Price Index were classified as underpriced for the third quarter of 2024. Detroit, Cleveland, Jackson, Des Moines, and Fargo were identified as the top 5 most underpriced cities in the index. In order to classify homes in the top 5 underpriced cities as overpriced, the national average mortgage loan interest rate would have to increase from 6.08% to more than the respective justified mortgage loan interest rate amount for each city, which fell within the range of 8.2% and 19.7%. Or it would have to be deemed imprudent by prospective homebuyers to spend as much as the respective justify percentage of household income amount for each city to repay the cost of a mortgage loan. Now that our quarterly residential housing market review is complete, here is some valuable information that you should consider. First, you can conduct similar housing analyses for your community and for your specific home purchase opportunities by subscribing to use the Adkins Residential Home Valuation Analyzer on Amazon.com. Simply search for residential real estate software to watch our 15-minute movie presentation and to subscribe to use our software. Second, there is a wealth of additional housing information on the Adkins Capital Management website, including our comprehensive home price index, interactive map of city housing analyses, newsfeed of pertinent housing information, housing methodology patent application, reverse mortgage loan analysis, movie catalog of quarterly residential housing market reviews, housing valuation methodology presentations, and tactical and strategic residential real estate hedge fund model portfolio. By visiting ACM, you can gain valuable insights into the housing market and make well-informed home purchase decisions. This is Troy Adkins saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation.